This video is for you if you want to understand your mind better. Stay tuned to the end to understand a bit better of yogic mind or yoga mind. The mind is consciousness, filtering through into this and being perceived by this. It is the observer I, the awareness of existence and consciousness. So what is the mind? A definition of it is the mind is often understood as a faculty that manifests itself in mental phenomena like sensation, perception, thinking, reasoning, memory, belief, desire, emotion, and motivation. Attached to this is mind. Because the great awareness is the great I am. So if we're looking to understand the mind, we have to understand that consciousness comes through the antenna perceiving this. There's messages going back and forth. There's constantly messages going back and forth. Just as this is sending more to here than this sends to here, this is sending messages there, and that is sending messages here. So, the higher mind, as we call it. Now we have unconscious, or non-conscious, subconscious, conscious, and unconscious. The non-conscious connects through the subconscious to the conscious, and in dreams when we are unconscious. This is an interesting concept because we're taught different levels of the mind: id, ego, subconscious, ego, which is right here, superego. Well, those are not disputable as far as existence goes, but they are not the only definition of mind, and they are not the only capsule of mind, and they are usually perceived as being based on how the mind is affected in this capsule, as if this capsule is the only me, when it's anywhere from 37 to 100 trillion me's working together as a we, so that I, the mind, get to have the experience I'm having, or you get to have the experience you're having. And the thing that makes us different from animals is we get to decide our emotional input. We get to decide what emotion we're going to apply in a place. Now there's an old statement, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, by Rene Descartes. And this is exactly backwards. I am, therefore I can think. Because you have to have awareness of the am and your amming before you can think about it. Think about that for a minute. I am, therefore I can think. That's an interesting concept because that removes me away from I think, therefore I am. Because that doesn't do anything but lift me above a level of a dog. And a dog can think. A dog has some reasoning and some logic. A cat can. What about the whales with their 3.5-ton brains, some of them? That's as big as a Volkswagen, by the way. How much capacity is going on there? Is that strictly animal awareness? Or maybe is their brain so big because they are much higher level of consciousness than we are? We don't know. We only have our judgment to put on them. We only have what we've been told for thousands of years, that we are higher than the animals. But maybe the dolphins know more than we do. We know that they're telepathic. We know that they have a 30 sound vocabulary. Cats have somewhere between 28 and 35. Think about that. So, let's discuss how the mind develops as far as in us humans. Because for the first 7 years, up to about the 8th birthday, the brain is absorbing every bit of information it comes into contact with. The child is in constant theta state. It's absorbing like a sponge, every single thing around it. Non-conscious at trillions, subconscious at millions, conscious at hundreds. So while we may think we've dealt with something consciously, it is through the subconscious and non-conscious that we actually deal with things because of the programs. And these programs are being set during this time. This is when most of the personality's set. This is when most of the beliefs are formed. And this is also when most traumas happen that cause distortions within the brain itself, physically, stored in the human nervous system, because every cell is affected by their thoughts. Any severe traumas in the first 18 to 36 months or pre-birth, and yes, these do happen because we're hooked through our umbilicus into the mother, and whatever the mother is experiencing, feeling, or thinking, the fetus is feeling, thinking. Whatever chemicals or anything that the mother uses, the fetus also is using. All 7 of the systems. So anything happening, any severe nervous system trauma or developmental issues can be set pre-birth. Think about that, ladies. Think about that before you get pregnant. Who do you want to be around? What do you want to do while your child is in there? If you get hyper excited, and I know this from experience, from regression to pre-birth, that when the mother gets hyper excited and all those thousands of chemicals from excitement and adrenaline and everything like that courses into the body, and we know that trauma sets things in the nervous system. I was set with a rage, a destructive rage. And since I couldn't destroy the other, I destroyed this through addiction, through smoking, which is on again, off again with me, tobacco, through use of marijuana, through use of sex, through copious amounts of alcohol. So think about that. Keeping your state while you're pregnant. And deciding to be pregnant is really important. But because we are looking out, because all of our input comes in, we end up with a slightly narcissistic point of view. And there's healthy narcissism, which is self-preservation. And then there's unhealthy narcissism, which is you have to preserve me. You have to feed me. You have to take care of me. You have to love me for me to feel loved. When all of these things come from within. The day that I realized that the amount of love I was generating for the last ex-girlfriend, the great catalyst, and thank you God for her, the day I realized that I was generating that feeling from within myself, that it wasn't happening because of something externally, it was happening in me because of a decision, was a life-changing event. And at the time that we were going through long-distance breakup and manipulation and sociopathy and things like that, I was changing paradigms sometimes 10, 15 times a day. I was pushing myself at a limit that there were no limits. In 6 months, from the time of actual contact cut to the next 6 months, I almost died. I put myself through a self-imposed, controlled, forced nervous breakdown by doing deep shadow work with the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program by Melanie Tanya Evans. That is copyrighted, and I thank her, and I'm working on my own program, which is a little deeper set and a little gentler. However, that being said, that narcissistic trait comes out in us because we're looking out. Everything has to come in. We have input. So then people talk about psychopaths and sociopaths and self-centered people. It's self-centered in the right way, centered in the self, self-realized, self-aware, self-determining. That's where we want to be. But then you have people who are known as psychopaths. And people will label someone a psychopath without knowing the actual definition. The psychopath is a completely conscienceless individual. In fact, in some circles, it is believed that this 1 to 30% of the population that show psychopathic traits, that there's 4% of the actual population that is actual psychopath, that is born without the nervous system structure to to have a conscience. Most psychopaths, most true psychopaths, from what I've heard and from what I understand, never actually commit a physically violent act other than maybe killing a mosquito or something. They would rather manipulate people into hurting themselves or hurting each other. They get joy from that. They sit back from that. They get their narcissistic supply from that. From watching others constantly do tailspins. From watching others be involved in harming each other. The sociopath, on the other hand, is formed, they make up 40 to 50% of the population have sociopathic traits. And I know that when I was codependent, I was just as sociopathic as the people I was involved in. So these people are prone to completely emotional state. They are living completely emotionally, whether they're male or female. They're prone to rage outbursts if you don't please them. They're constantly changing the rules, like the psychopath. But the psychopath has a good capacity to control the self, where the sociopath doesn't have much control. If you aren't giving them the supply they want, they will let you know immediately and violently. They will withhold affection as soon as they possibly can. They constantly fish string you or carrot you, or what we call dog whistling you. Hey, 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 here it is, oh, you missed it, here it is, oh, you missed it, this is why you missed it. And when you call them out on it, they say, no, we're going to pretend that this is such and such because you're the problem. Well, you know what? I was the problem because I got involved with you in the first place. Because I thought I had to be involved with you. Because I felt that I had to be involved with you. Because you were giving me a little bit of narcissistic supply, and I was expecting the amount of supply I was giving you. The thing about it is that all of this is programmed in the nervous system. And both are considered antisocial personality disorder by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. This therapist does not use that because I'm not a psychotherapist in the traditional sense in Western medicine of the psychologist or the psychiatrist. No matter how much training I have in the mind, I am a clinical hypnotherapist and clinical hypno-coach, but I am not a psychotherapist. Excuse me. So I can help you dig up the old stuff and find out why you're doing something and help you unlock the emotion that's attached to it and the belief that that has to be existent in your mind. And I'll tell you, I do stuff like this every single day. In fact, recently, my guides have let me know, relax, take a break, do what you're doing as far as a healing practice and the clinical therapy goes, do what you're doing as far as your music goes, but relax. When that's done for the day, quit pushing it further. Let's take a break for a while. That doesn't mean I'm going to quit doing my shadow work. What it means is I'm going to slow down and be very specific about what shadow work I'm letting myself work on. Whatever comes up instead of specifically targeting. What needs to come up today? So as I said, understanding the yogic mind. We learn the mind as layers of koshas, or sheaths, the layers of existence. And Annamaya, or the physical, the food sheath, is this one. Everything that's attached to this, which we've been discussing already. This is the one that is satisfied with sex and drugs and rock and roll. This is the one that we work to not necessarily subjugate, but to guide to do what we want. Then there's Pranamaya, which is the life force sheath, the body systems that are attached to the 7 chakras. And there are 7 bodily systems, 7 glandular systems in the body, and each one of those chakra centers up the spine is attached to them. And it works with them. And this is being proven scientifically as we speak. Check out Dr. Joe Dispenza. Incredible man. Check out Dr. Bruce Lipton. Check out Dr. Caroline Leaf if you want to understand how to change your thought structures. But Bruce Lipton is an epigeneticist, and Joe Dispenza is just an incredible human being. as far as goes, and also a doctor. Then you have the next kosha, which is the manomaya kosha, or the mental or thinking sheath. That's where we are attached to this. That's where those thoughts come from. Where we're taking the feelings of this, and we're dealing with this, and this is what we think about it. The manomaya kosha. The vinyamaya kosha is the wisdom or the observer sheath. We're getting back to the observer I, the I am, the awareness sheath. The sheath that has to do with observing all of this taking place and learning to take a step back to be in that mind where I can observe, where I can self-reflect, where I can self-direct. And the last one we have is the anandamaya, or bliss body, or energy sheath, which moves us into the sixth layer, which is Parampurusha, or the creator itself, the actual universal quantum structure. So those are the levels of mind in yoga, and meditation will help you get there. And no, your mind is not supposed to be quiet during meditation. Your mind is supposed to be out there, and you can observe it. Unless you're going to be a monk or a nun in a cave for the next 50 years, 30 to 50 years, you're not going to get a day where your mind does not think. So anyways, understanding the mind. Thank you for healing. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Namaskar.